In the long history of human conflict, there are few forces more devastating than disease. And few diseases have shaped our world more profoundly than smallpox. For centuries, the British Empire knew exactly how lethal it was. They watched it ravage armies, level cities, and reshape entire continents. And by the mid-1700s, they knew something else as well, something chilling. Smallpox could be carried, smallpox could be spread, smallpox could be used. This was not speculation. It was written in British letters, documented by British officers, and preserved in British archives. In 1763, General Geoffrey Amherst, commander of the British forces in North America, approved the use of smallpox-infected blankets against indigenous nations. Not a rumor, not a myth, a letter signed by Amherst himself. Weaponized smallpox was real, and the British knew exactly what they held in their hands. But long before the first fleet set sail, the British were already carrying the seeds of smallpox inside their own bodies. In Europe, smallpox swept through communities again and again. Most children contracted it young. Those who survived were immune for life. By the time they reached adulthood, smallpox was no longer a visible threat to them, but it remained a silent companion, a virus capable of traveling in clothing, in bedding, and crucially, in the variolation kits the British carried to inoculate themselves. These kits contained dried smallpox scabs, the very material that could start an epidemic on British ships. This was standard procedure. Troops couldn't be allowed to fall sick, so the Empire carried immunity with them, and the virus along with it. And then, in 1788, the first fleet arrived at Sydney Cove, at Warrain, the heart of Gadigal country. The colonists carried no visible disease, no outbreaks, no fever, no blistered skin, no signs of infection. Why? Because almost every one of them had been exposed in childhood. They were immune. Smallpox could move among them silently, harmless to the British, but lethal to anyone who had never encountered it before. And standing on those shores were the Gadigal, to the west the Wangal, further inland the Burra-Matagal, and across the southern waters of Kamay, the Gwegal and wider Dharawal peoples, Darug-speaking nations with no immunity at all. 1 year later, in 1789, British officers began writing in their journals. Pustules thickly spread on the bodies, entire families lying dead in their shelters, the natives perishing in great numbers. These words were not written by indigenous people, they were written by Judge Advocate David Collins, Marine Officer Watkin Tench, Surgeon John White. White men, documenting a catastrophe unfolding before their eyes. And yet, as thousands of Aboriginal people died, something strange happened. Not one British settler succumbed. Not one. This is the signature of a European smallpox strain. It is not consistent with a disease brought from the north. It is not consistent with spontaneous eruption. It is not consistent with coincidence. It is consistent with a virus carried in immune bodies, or in British inoculation materials. White epidemiologists like Judy Campbell, Craig Meir, and Chris Warren reached the same conclusion. The 1789 outbreak behaves exactly as a European-introduced virus behaves. The strain aligns with variola major, the same strain used in British inoculation scabs. The spread radiates outward from Port Jackson, the settlement itself, and the immunity pattern is unmistakable. Devastation for those encountering smallpox for the first time, immunity among those who carried it. So no, this is not indigenous hearsay. This is not guesswork. This is not revisionism. This is the British Empire's own medical practice, its own history, its own officers' journals, and its own epidemiological footprint. Speaking across 242 years, smallpox did not appear in Australia by accident. It came with the Empire. Whether through inoculation kits, contaminated materials, or an immune carrier. The tragedy that followed was not deliberate warfare, but it was absolutely foreseeable, given everything the British already knew about disease immunity and the devastation infectious matter could unleash. And when the epidemic swept through the Aboriginal nations around Sydney, the Gadigal, the Wangal, the Burramatigal, the Gwagal, the Darawal and other Darug-speaking groups, the British documented the horror in their own handwriting. History is not changed by refusing to look at it. It is changed by understanding it. And the truth, the documented, white recorded truth, is that the First Fleet carried the world's deadliest virus to a continent with no natural defense against it. That knowledge does not divide us. It informs us. It shows us how fragile humanity has always been, and how much responsibility accompanies contact between worlds.